field, and I met my husband when I was doing summer work as in a church in New York City, although I was in school in Atlanta and he was in school in New Jersey. So we met, got married, and went to Hong Kong and lived for 2 years. We say BC, right before children. And then more school, and while he was doing another degree, right, killing his wife by degrees, right, we had our 2 kids. And then he took a job in New York City, so we moved here. I had a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old. And I was very stupid about the city, so we had not a 5th floor walk-up, but we had a 4th floor walk-up, so it's with all the equipment and the kids, and you know, so like I said, I wasn't a martyr, just dumb. And we lived here ever since, so that was 1986. So we lived on the Lower East Side for the last 26, 27 years.
Thank you guys for coming. We'll launch right into our panel session. So our first question is for Whitney. And you mentioned this a little bit. How did you come to be full of joy and peace about being a mom, even as it was unexpected and full of unknowns?
So I had to ask God to change my heart because I was very upset about becoming a mom and just didn't feel prepared. I felt completely incompetent, completely selfish, and just not ready to be a mom. And especially I wanted more time with my husband. I wanted to take a trip around the world with him. I thought that would never happen. So I had to ask God to change my heart, and he really put some confidence boosters in my path, like a community group. I met new friends that were also becoming pregnant, or they were pregnant at the same time as me. And then my husband was, of course, super supportive. He was on board from the moment we found out. So I just had to keep trusting that God would change my heart, because I knew that if he had allowed me to get pregnant, this was intentional, and this was in his plan for me, and he would put me in the way he knew I needed to be equipped. And so I needed to just step out of the way and let him do it. So, yeah.
That's wonderful.
And it happened. He changed my heart.
It took about 3 months.
So Suzanne,
Yes.
how did you learn to parent here without replicating your own childhood? Surely there were a lot of unknowns in parenting.
I grew up in North Carolina, so you know, had a house, had a yard. You could sort of go out and play in the yard. You could ride in the middle of the street and get a bike, you know. So it was very different circumstantially. My husband and I, though, had lived in lots of big cities in kind of our married life, so we had a longer ramp up before the kids thing. So we did like urban areas, and we did feel a real calling to the city. So that sort of helped that start. I did worry, you know, no yard where you play. But then I thought more, I guess, and since you asked the question, I thought more about it. That a lot of my circumstances growing up were Christian parents. So I did have a family that loved God and tried their best to sort of do what God said in their lives and in their professional life. So I think that's what I began to try to replicate, right, is, okay, I can love God here. You know, you don't need a backyard for that. You don't need, you know, and I think it was, I had a lot of friends whose parents would take them and drop them off at church, but the parents didn't believe. And so consequently, I think they didn't believe really. But I think I had parents that really believed it was real. And so that's what I wanted to kind of show to my kids, that God is really real, and he cares about you, and he has a, you know, Billy Graham has a wonderful plan for your life, you know, and you're really special. So I think those inside things I really could replicate. And then I think I talked about like staying in one place. My husband and I both grew up in sort of the same house or the same small town, and that really helped. So in the midst of the Lower East Side, it's very transient, right? Like you guys probably already know in your church, it's so transient. We kind of made that choice to be stuck, to stay in one place for what God told us to do, but also for the kids' sake. That even their weird, crazy, scary environment was the same for them. So it wasn't so scary because it was familiar, you know. As Freeman, you know, he grew up in the drug dealer environment, but he knew all them, so. Yeah, okay, well, we moved to 3rd Central, right? That's where it's all gentrified. But when we moved there, right next door to our building was a crack house. You know, they'd count the crack vials as I was pushing the stroller up the street. A lot of abandoned buildings, a lot of, it was a little bit scary, but in a way, because all the drug dealers' kids were in our church program, they left us alone. We were kind of protected in that way, you know. And my husband, who's a pastor, he walked down the street, they say, "Hi, Father," you know, they kind of assumed he was a priest. So God has his own way of kind of protecting you. And then someone would say, "Here's my wife," and they'd sort of look at him funny, you know. But anyway, he's a priest. It was kind of threatening and scary, but for the boys, it got to be familiar and not so scary.
How were you able to be full of faith?
Well, I had the faith, you know, I started with the faith where I wouldn't have gotten there, I wouldn't have gone there. I think it's sort of a word for all of you guys, like, if this is not your environment you grew up in, then I think you're really grateful and kind of excited because you get an adventure, you get an adventure, you don't get just sort of that same old plod along in the summer. You know, this is kind of fun, like, you have to rely on God, and God has a lot of really, like, fun things for you. You know, you got Central Park, you got, you know, zoos, you got museums, and it's kind of a more exciting life than maybe what's familiar and comfortable. You know, just like, you know, peach cobbler or salad. Well, which is better for you? Well, the salad, even though it's not as comforting, you're going to be a stronger, better person, that kind of thing.
So, no more practicals. Whitney, as you continue in motherhood, more unknown challenges will continue to present themselves. So how are you preparing to meet those challenges?
I have been, in the beginning, I was just kind of going with my gut as far as motherhood went, and I realized that I probably need a little more resources than that. So I'm turning to things like the Bible. Books, I'm reading Thanks to Mary Hines, She Will Lead the Baby Wise books, and I'm reading the second one right now, which is actually really helpful because I was so scared of disciplining and what that means. You know, how do you do it, and how do you do not too much but not too little. That has been helpful, and then also just learning about baby's development. The Wonder Weeks, I downloaded the app on my iPhone, and that's been wonderful because it shows you what phase they're going through each week, and it helps you kind of understand where your baby's coming from instead of just being frustrated and like, oh, why is he not performing? Why is he not doing what I want him to do? So it's helped me to like be appreciative of him more and like enjoy the stages that he goes through. I also, since it's hard to read, I've been looking for sermons online. I listen to a lot of Driscoll at Mars Hill, and I also have some Proverbs for Parenting sermons that I've started listening to that are really good. And just a lot of prayer. I've definitely turned to prayer lately because it's becoming more challenging. Like now he has more of a personality. He's not just a little baby that will do whatever I want for the most part. So a lot of prayer and surrounding myself with positive people. My friend Dawn is back there, and so we're going through this together. Her baby's a couple months older than mine, and we try to get together at least weekly and just learn from each other and motivate each other and just have each other. And I think it's really important to have Christian and non-Christian mom friends in your life. For me, like, I can learn from both sets of moms, and it's really important to have that support.
And we'll send out those resources
Yeah.
that she's mentioned. So Susan, and you touched on this already a little bit, but if there's anything else that you might be able to share, would you share with us sometimes that God has been faithful to you and your kids in the midst of your whole circumstances?
My biggest example I love to tell people is because school is always an issue, right? So when they were little preschoolers, I was home with them. We just played around the house, got to do whatever we wanted. You know, it's kind of fun, great life. But then, Freeman turned 4 and it's time to go to preschool. And I was telling them, like, preschool even then, 1990 or whatever it was, $30,000 for a private preschool. I'm like, forget it. That was like my college. So the state had started a half-day preschool program, and down a block from us was a really nice new school. It's all spiffy and shiny, and the teacher was coming young and peppy. We toured the school and stuff. So I went to register him, but it was already closed. There weren't any more places. A few blocks away, east, right, so toward Alphabet City, right, and here's what they used to say. Avenue A, aware. Avenue B, beware. Avenue C, caution. Avenue D, death, right, so that's where we were. This was on Avenue C, right, so it was one of those big public schools that looks like a prison, right? Why do they just build those big square brick things, right, and the kind of bars everywhere, and big burly, like high school, mean-looking kids, and like, there's a little tiny Freeman with this bright red hair, he's got orange hair, and he's like Pharisees walking down, and so I said, God, what do you want me to do? You can just stay home with me still, and okay, God said, okay, you can at least sign up, and if it's not good, now, so I signed up there. It was wonderful. The teacher was so fabulous. And so that's one thing I wanted to say, as you're fearing public school, as you're looking at public school or private school, or if you're the teacher, do what God tells you, because God really knows all of those unknown things. His teacher was fabulous. She was so good. We put his brother in her class 2 years later. The circumstances didn't matter at all. She was really fun. She taught him a lot. She liked it. It was just really confidence building for him. But if I had done it based on my ability to see and hear and evaluate, I would never have put him there. My girlfriend, my non-Christian girlfriend that's a mom, her daughter went to the pretty spiffy school with the young kids. That teacher was like taking some kind of medication, and she screamed a lot and slammed the doors, and it was really traumatic for the children in that class. So I guess it's just that biblical thing. You cannot judge by externals, Just like you don't want somebody to judge you by what you wear, or if your nails are chipped, or if your hair is frizzy, or if you're whatever. You want to judge your heart, right? So I think God is the same way with your kids, and who you introduce your kids to, and where you go to school. So, you make the best judgment you can, and then you sacrifice that to God, right? To let Him make sort of that final call. So that was sort of one beautiful thing. And then actually both of my kids went to public school and had a great time. One went to Stuyvesant, one went to Rock Science. So by junior high, I couldn't even help them with their homework anymore. Their stuff was so tough, which is great. I didn't want to. They got a great education that God really provided in His own way. So, yeah.
Susan shared with me a quote by Luther. It said,
You have to sacrifice your common sense.
Sacrifice your common sense to God. Okay, so let's move on to fear of failure. So for both of you guys, just quickly, are there expectations you have had for yourself, or hopes you've had for your family that you're fearful of not meeting? Expectations you have that you're fearful of not meeting?
Yes. Well, first of all, I want to make it perfect. Yeah, so I just have to, you have to give that to God. And throughout this whole experience, I just learned that, God knows what's going on. He knows He has a plan for all of us. And He has a plan for me. And none of this was what I expected. I expected to be living either abroad or in Colorado by now. And here we are still in the city. And I think daily, I beat myself up, like, when I don't get other things done that I want. Like, I don't get all the dishes done, or I don't get dinner done on time, or whatever. I stay at home with my kids, so it seems like I have a lot of time, but it takes so much time. So I get frustrated when I can't do anything.
Like, how do we deal with Yeah, like how do you hope in Christ instead? Okay. Let's go.
Just knowing that it's a journey. It's not like, today was in the journey, my child's in the future. Thank God. Just knowing that, I'm the one in this Charlie's early, and just trusting that he's preparing me and always trying to think her thoughts and think on the good things and the positive things and also preparing for when he's more cognizant and trying to find those teaching moments. I think Amber talked about that a lot in the past, and so I try to look for those now, even though I might not be actually teaching him because he doesn't know who is listening. I try to prepare for that.
I guess my disclaimer is I never liked children much. I never babysat. I did, maybe once or twice. I was the youngest. I was the baby, right? So that's the great world to be in. So I didn't have huge expectations of myself or as a parent because I thought, well, I like my kids, but they'll come along. So, but I think some of this helped me as far as like perfection and what am I doing and what am I doing wrong, and will my child be in therapy for the rest of his life because I spanked him or something, whatever. I think a better word than perfect is to kind of think in a Hebrew way, and that word shalom, it kind of means nothing missing, nothing broken. So I think that's kind of a better way to think of it. Instead of like perfection meaning some list of objectives that you've completed, to just think, okay, in my child's life, nothing missing, nothing broken. Find that I've given him love, again, trying to that I'm not purposefully damaging them or some kind of way, but just to have a kind of a shalom instead of perfect, have a peace about, okay, God's in charge of this whole big thing, and kind of I think it's where God can fill in where I mess up, and that's nothing you can really trust God for. So God's not, sometimes we think of God as sort of just standing there with not standing, whatever, up there with the lightning bolt, ready to get us. If we mess up, he's gonna give us one, but I think it's God's really for you. He's not trying to get something from you, he's trying to get something to you. So I think that would parent you too. Let you off the hook a little bit, yeah.
Thank you. So let me ask you a subset question about that. How have you been able to make decisions in faith, even as the outcome of those decisions are not perfect?
Well, I say a lot, and you put on your mirror, especially Romans 8:1, right? There's no condemnation for them that are in Christ Jesus. So I think it's just like, if you mess up, okay, move on. Yeah, you mess up, you did the wrong thing. I remember seeing Freeman really bug me. Sorry, Candace, I keep picking up here. Don't video this. Okay, you gotta cut that video off. So, I was really mad at him, and I gave him a swat. He just come out of the bathtub, and I saw, my little hand, my 4 fingers on his little bottom, because he's pretty fair-skinned, let's say. Anyway, but I felt really terrible. Like, this is not a good thing. I was just angry, But you just repent. You just say, okay, this is probably, I would tell Freeman, that's probably not my best choice, Freeman, but it was the only thing I could think of, you weren't listening or whatever. So I do think there's that sort of thing about you're not perfect. But I think with the question, I think you have to give up the outcomes to God as well, right? So if they had rebellious teenagers, okay, I did the best I could. I didn't do anything that I felt I was disobedient, right? And I heard my favorite preacher, besides my husband, I said the video, he said, another favorite preacher said one time, success and failure are master language, not slave language, right? So if we're God's slaves, it's for God to determine, right? So if your child has a rocky teenage year, maybe that's what they have to have, for their development. Maybe to get back to God, they have to do that adventure, and we just don't have the capacity to know that kind of thing. So, and I have to say, both boys had some mildly rocky teenage rebellion, but they came back to know who God was for themselves, not, what in our church we say, God has no grandchildren. Like, your child needs to know God for themselves, not your God that you know. So.
So when you feel like you already answered this a little, but who or what do you turn to when you feel like you failed?
My pattern when I feel like I failed is not necessarily helpful at all. Like turn inward and just be myself. Or I'll talk to my husband about it, or I'll talk to my family about it. But usually in the end I go to God and I'm just like, God, I am so not perfect. Please fix me. And again, it's not about being perfect. It's about, work through me in spite of my imperfection. So daily, like I'm constantly giving God and just asking Him to use me and work through me and work in spite of me.
Okay, so this is our last question, and then we'll go into discussion time and then question and answer. But Susan, how do you respond to your children with grace and patience when they fail or disobey or don't meet your expectations?
And I want to ask you back. You mean now? They're like 27 and then 29. No, or when they're little.
Maybe start with it. Maybe both.
Yeah.
Both would be great.
Yeah. I sort of think of things a different way. So I get, I had a temper. Like Freeman and I would yell at each other, when he's like 16. It's like really, it was